Is censorship now a problem for filmmakers on Indiegogo? And a review of Ant-Man and Wasp on episode 108 of the Cinema Psycho Show. Now, let's hit that music.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft.
Ant-Man! Oh, see, I was going for like Woolscroft, and you were like all about Ant-Man, and
You ruined my bit, you son bitch.
oh no!
I mean, I think you're missing the theme of dun 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 Ant-Man theme.
It's true.
Like
It's
every Marvel music.
That's right. That's right.
It was a good theme.
It was a good theme. So we're on episode 108, and you might be asking yourself, well, the Cinema Psycho said last week that they're going to be bi-weekly now. Why the hell are they releasing this the next week? Shouldn't I be waiting 2 weeks for this? Well, yeah, but
Good point, and we're glad you did the math.
We're glad that you paid attention to us to care. But we figured with Ant-Man coming we're on the second weekend right now, right? Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Second weekend of Ant-Man being out. That maybe we release our Ant-Man episode just to kind of stay relevant. And also the news bit we have is going to blow you the fuck away. And actually,
Don't build it up too much, Connington.
I'm blowing it up.
Okay, well, don't blow too hard.
Did you see what he did there?
Yeah, I just saw what you did there.
So wait,
the
news is about Brian blowing? I'm
No,
so confused.
no,
Oh, okay.
no, it's not. Stop it. Stop it. So we decided to put out an episode this week and then kind of resume our bi-weekly thing this will be the next 2 weeks is when you'll get another episode. So for this one, we got a jam-packed one. First, we'll be talking about a new policy at Indiegogo that was reported on medium.com and how it affects filmmakers. And actually, I did a lot of digging on this one because I think it's really relevant to filmmakers to kind of know, since Indiegogo is only like the second most popular financial outlet for independent filmmakers to raise money for the projects. And then we'll be going into Ant-Man and the Wasp and just reviewing it and seeing how good it is, if it's up to the snuff of Marvel caliber films, and if it gets over our Infinity War hangover.
Oh, Infinity World, that'll eventually be a thing.
It will be. It will be. So with this Indiegogo news, so I'm actually part of a independent horror filmmakers group on Facebook, and this article came down the pipe from the author is Jason Kaufman, who is a daily contributor to Daily Grindhouse and Film Monthly, and it details how a new policy affected a specific filmmaker. His name is Dustin Wade Mills. He had a project called The Hornet's Disciple and the Scars She Left.
That's a long title.
It is.
It's going to be hard to get on a poster.
Oh,
I know that's not the point, but
he got it on the poster. Like,
all right.
Yeah. So, it's a horror film. It's definitely a genre film, and it is, and in his description of it, pretty much an exploitation type film. So we're talking lots of sex, lots of violence, simulated sexuality, and simulated scenes of torture, which are fine. I know it's not really my cup of tea, but there's an audience out there for it. You see movies like Hostel that are the same basic thing.
It's easy, but it is what it is.
I wouldn't say any type of filmmaking's easy.
But,
I mean, there's always a challenge to it.
But I mean, all artists should be allowed to, do whatever they want.
So I'm not going to comment necessarily on the content of his work. More or less, I'm going to talk about the situation that he ended up in. So I actually contacted both Indiegogo and Dustin and got a nice email back from Dustin and actually talked directly with a representative from Indiegogo. So I did some sleuthing.
Brian, you were like Columbo this week.
I did some sleuthing. This is all after.
Columbo.
Here's
John,
the thing.
you're
Here's
so
the funny
old.
thing, guys. So I came out of Ant-Man and the Wasp because the day prior I had sent an email to Indiegogo just asking for a comment on this because I said, hey, I wanted to mention this because I think it's important to independent filmmakers to know what this policy is and if they should be weary of using their platform. And I got a response the next day immediately after Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I was in the car on the phone with a representative for Indiegogo talking about this.
So they're on their heels.
They're
pretty
on.
much.
They might be. They might be. I don't think we really caused that much concern for them. We're not CNN, obviously. But
How dare you?
I'm just saying.
I'm. If we were CNN, I'm Jake Trapper.
Anyway, let me go. I'm going to first tell what Dustin told me. Okay, so he emailed me back, and I asked, just give me your side of the story on this. So he basically set up a flexible funding for the pre-order of his film, The Hornet's Disciple and the Scars She Left. He got some contributors, he had DVDs and Blu-rays authored, and he got photo books that he was ready to go ahead and give out to the backers, and really was just waiting on the money to disperse. He waited, and he heard nothing from Indiegogo, not a damn thing. He even put in a service request, and he had nothing back from them. They told him to be patient. And then basically all of a sudden, his campaign was deleted, and his contributions were refunded. And they claimed that it was because of the content of his campaign. They didn't really answer him, though, any real question. They really didn't follow up with him about his emails or anything like that, and they ignored him. And they won't even release the contact info of his contributors. So there's no way that he can email them directly and say, hey, here's what happened. Sorry.
Wow.
Here's a PayPal if you really want to send me that money back. That's the real thing, is they really blackballed him in terms of this, and he can't pay back his investors because of this.
That's such a shame.
And he pretty much had the rug pulled out from under him. He does make mention that, as I said, his film does contain nudity, simulated sex, and simulated torture. But honestly, he made mention of this particular film, and I did look at the campaign for it. He said that's no different than the movie Don't Fuck in the Woods, which is another horror film.
Oh, interesting.
That was, but it was successful in Indiegogo.
Now, when you're making a poster for that, do you just put a star instead of a U? How do you get that one out there?
Just bleep it out.
I don't know, but the point is that his movie really was no different than.
Okay, you just said that with such a straight face.
I know.
It's no different than Don't Fuck in the Woods, which is a good sound thing to live by because you don't want a pine cone in the ass.
No, or poison ivy in the crotch.
Whoa.
Or bears to smell.
Yeah. Yeah. But he believes, and this is detailed in the article, that this is a result of the Trump administration's new laws that were passed in the spring called SESTA and FOSTA, which the background on that is that they were designed specifically to target human sex trafficking on the internet.
Well, and these new rules have been harmful as well in other areas. This has prevented
yes.
sex workers from communicating with each other and talking about certain Johns that might not be safe to interact with and that sort of thing.
Let's
sorry,
pick a
that's the
different
name.
word.
That's the name. I'm sorry, friend.
Let's say clienteler, maybe.
I'm sorry.
Not John.
I'm sorry, Mr. Williscroft.
How about manager? Would that work?
Yeah.
Like in wrestling?
Yeah.
I stole your wrestling reference.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it this
Bobby
week,
the Brain
Brian.
Heenan, greatest manager of all time.
But yeah, but these permissions or regulations from the Trump administration have already proved to be damaging.
Yes, and the point is that this ultimately it gets rid of what's called, I believe, it's called the safe harbor clause in our internet regulations that have been in place since the 90s, and they basically say that the websites are not responsible for the content of its users. Okay, that's ultimately what it is. Mm-hmm. That the content that you put up there is really the responsibility of the user, not the venue.
Right.
And this, and the idea is that, I guess because of these new laws, it's now making it where the website is responsible for the content of the users,
right.
which is damaging to this sort of thing, because now Indiegogo is saying, hey, we don't want depictions of simulated torture or anything that's fictional torture, fictional violence, fictional sexual acts, because that could be misconstrued as this. Now, I get they're trying to cover that. And now, as I said, I did get a response from Indiegogo, which I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, they had you reach out, which is amazing.
They did within a day.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like, I was completely blown away by it. And they were very nice. I'll be honest with you. The person I talked to, I can't divulge the name, was a representative for Indiegogo, and was very kind and answered my questions without any real runaround.
Nice. That's good.
So her response, especially because in the article from Medium, the author mentions that Indiegogo changed their terms of use. Indiegogo says that they did not. Now that's a lie, because I went onto archive.org and looked up their terms of use from, I think I looked at it from November of 2017.
Oh, wow.
Just to see if there was any difference between that and now. And there is. And if you look at their terms of use now, it'll say that it has been, I'll pull it up here for a minute here. This is effective as of May 25th, 2018. So they have a previous version that you can look up. So them saying that they've never changed their terms of use is a lie, because it's there.
Right.
Okay? Along with that, they mentioned that the reason that they suspended that campaign was due to the depiction of torture. Now, if you look at Dustin's actual campaign, you can still look it up if you type in his film's title and find on Indiegogo. He does have a picture of a woman in a ball gag, and his video does have blurred out nudity, so it's not like you can see anything. Okay. And it does have depictions of simulated torture. But the thing is this is all in the context of being fictional, being a movie. There's really no difference.
Well, if he was Eli Roth, they wouldn't be shutting him down.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the whole point here. So they said that that's the reason why, because of the depiction of torture. They also say that horror films are welcome at Indiegogo. Now, I kind of tend to disagree with that, since obviously they do have a limit.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a certain way that things could be depicted and still kept on their site.
And go ahead.
I just think that what they did, to Dustin is reactionary instead of being proactive.
Exactly.
If you didn't want that kind of content, like when someone proposes their project, I mean, it has to be approved. If you've approved the project, you should go through finally, it's all about grandfathering in and pipelines. Like, if you want to change your policies, okay, fine, but you should honor anybody whose project has already been approved, right?
Right. And that was my thing too, because the thing that I saw, because I looked at Don't Fuck in the Woods, okay? I looked at their campaign. And their campaign...
It's like killing me now.
I know.
Why.
And their campaign didn't have any real depictions of the horror aside from just the trailer. They kept it kind of to...
I mean, in the film itself, or in the
film
campaign
itself,
content?
they more than likely had it. In their campaign content, I didn't really see anything that would scream, "Oh God, there's going to be torture."
So, are we seeing a possible loophole here? Like, I mean, if you propose your project and maybe it does have odd,
that is
the odd bit of
About.
content.
That is what I'm talking about.
Okay, interesting.
So they didn't really, and this was kind of discouraging to me. They didn't really comment on why this happened at the end of the campaign instead of during it.
Right.
Because my contention is that, and they said that they have people who I guess are scouring Indiegogo for violations. And if they get reports, then they look into it.
But I mean, if the project's approved, then that should be a moot point. Like, this should be happening at the approval process and not after the fact when people have earned their money.
And that's my thing about this too, is here's how this situation doesn't happen again. Okay. One, I'm not telling Indiegogo to, start allowing this stuff on their website at all times. I'm not saying that at all.
No.
What I'm saying, and here's the solution for this, okay? If you're a filmmaker and you're making an exploitation film, okay, and you want to use Indiegogo, and you put your campaign out there, before it becomes live, before it becomes active, before it becomes a thing that you are now generating income towards your project, it should be approved and looked at by a human being.
Yeah.
Not an algorithm, not a robot, not something that's just going to rubber stamp it. Because the problem I think that maybe Dustin probably wouldn't have if that process was in play, is that Indiegogo has said, hey, you've got X, Y, and Z on your campaign. We can't approve it until that stuff is removed. We're not telling you can't make your movie, you can't raise money off it.
Right.
Just maybe alter your campaign materials so that stuff isn't on the site.
Right.
Have a legitimate person contact the filmmaker and tell them what's wrong. Don't do this. I'm not going to talk to you shit, which is what Dustin had to deal with.
Yeah, which, I mean, just to have the rug pulled out from you, that's got to be so
Exactly.
frustrating.
Well, I mean, do they have enough people to monitor every single person that's trying to make a film on
If they're going to have these stringent requirements, then they better.
That's my point too. You can't have this bullshit listed out there if you're not going to back it. And you're telling me that there's no one you can't get maybe 20 or 30 or 40 people whose sole job is to, when a campaign is uploaded, actually verify it.
These crowdfund sites, they make money. They make money on your money. Like, that's how they work. And, it's funny to think just, not that many years ago, the idea of crowdfunding your film was, through a website was so mind blowing. I mean, I remember the first time I heard about Kickstarter or Indiegogo, it was such a novel concept, but there's a lot of these now. Sadly, they're mostly for people's medical bills because we live in the shit fire that is America. But, it's not, they're a dime a dozen now, really. There's other sites now.
But they're not, ultimately the ones that do generate more money are Indiegogo.
Absolutely.
And Kickstarter.
They're the big dogs.
That's why this is a concern.
And they should staff up accordingly.
It's a beautiful scam. It's middleman stuff. They sit back and collect a profit for doing nothing.
They host your funds.
No, here's the thing. They don't sit back there and do nothing. They are hosting your funds. They are offering you a community. They are offering you a venue, just like anything. Okay. I look at it in terms of a venue. They're offering you a platform that you can get your content out there and get people interested in and make it a quick way to do it. Now, are there other ways to do it? Absolutely. You could very easily do a PayPal contribution thing and have people directly give you money for that. And I hope that that's what Dustin does to type of recoup his costs because of, the way that Indiegogo treated him. But I think the responsibility to this, because you could say, well, maybe he shouldn't make an exploitation film. And that's the wrong attitude to have. Because the minute we start curtailing, the minute we start censoring stuff and saying, well, you're not going to raise money for that exploitation film, or you're not going to raise money for this film, it's a slippery slope. I don't like that term slippery slope because it's used all the time.
Right.
But in this regard, it actually is. So I think that the solution to this, if there is one, is that Indiegogo should own up and make it so that there is an approval process that has to happen, that your campaign has to be verified by a staff member, by a real person, before it goes live.
And then they can't make any changes to that status once it's been approved.
Exactly.
Agreed. I agree.
Exactly. So that's, the way I look at it, it's the same thing with ads on Facebook. If I put an ad up on Facebook, it has to be verified and approved first.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
Interesting news story. I didn't mean to take it up that long, but I think it's very relevant to filmmakers, to anyone that is using these platforms to raise money. You kind of got to be careful, unfortunately, because people have a censorship bug up their ass now.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame that something like Indiegogo wants to censor things because that's Disney's job.
Oh,
and speaking of them, Disney's
You did it!
movie Ant-Man came out, and we should
transition.
Yeah, so
I loved it.
This was a great film because you had a depressing experience in Infinity War. I know I did. At the end of it, I'm just like, oh shit, everyone's dead.
I feel that
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
I feel they already know that.
Yeah, we did that a few weeks back. But I feel that future generations that will be able to, I say rent, like that thing, like digitally download or whatever the version of that is in the future, like both Infinity War movies together will have a much better time than all of us that went to the movie theater and say, this is a fun movie. There's kind of funny laughs. Peter Dinklage is in it, and everybody's dead.
That was a bummer. I'm not gonna.
Everybody
lie.
will be back alive.
You know it's like it's
not everybody.
You know it's like Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
the people who actually went and saw Empire Strikes Back in the theater probably were depressed as all hell.
I mean, could you guys fucking imagine? Like, you had to see Empire in the theater, and like it just ends, and you're like, wait, what?
Well, guys, that's a completely different movie. That had character progression.
That's very true.
Oh,
And shots fired.
Take that, Disney's Marvel.
Fired.
yeah. So I don't know about you. I know, John, you're a fan of Ant-Man. I liked Ant-Man as well. And I like this movie as well, too. You're probably going to fight me on that and tell me why I shouldn't like it. But I personally thought that Ant-Man and Wasp was
for me,
really, really good.
For me, pro tip, I definitely watched the first one the night before at home, and it was pretty great. I watched it the night before, and then we went to see the second one in the theater the next day, and it was pretty incredible. Yeah. Seeing them together like in a row, like the ultimate binge, I would say.
Well, guys, wouldn't you say that Disney's, Marvel's, Peyton Reed's Ant-Man, Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and Wasp, wouldn't you say that movie, the big selling point is Paul Rudd?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the movies are fun anyways, but like, Paul Rudd is amazing.
He embodies the character in a really profound way, like he has such an ease in front of the camera. I think that's really interesting too. I mean, the first thing I ever saw him in was in 1996 in Clueless.
That's the first thing I remember seeing him.
I mean, it's probably one of his very first things.
Halloween 6.
Yep,
right.
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew that, but like that was like, so I feel like not only is he good in this role, but he's been like around for ages, and it's almost like comforting to have like an actor that you're really familiar with from childhood. I mean, I hate to say that, it's kind of infantilizing, but I don't know, it's like, oh, it's Uncle Paul, okay,
Well, it's weird because he hasn't aged.
Right?
He really hasn't.
Yeah,
his abs are definitely better now than they were in Clueless.
You love
goddamn
how in Ant-Man and Wasp they made a point to show his abs,
ladies.
Like,
oh yeah, he was shirtless
he's in a
more than
bathroom,
necessary,
and they're just like, here's a shot of his abs.
Yeah, well, it's
there you go, ladies.
It's the Chris Evans effect. Like, did you need to have your shirt off? No. Do I appreciate it? Yes.
Well, see, like Chris Evans has always been buff. I think it's more the Chris Pratt effect, where it's like, look at these schlubby comedy actors and look how buff they are now.
That's true. That's
right
true,
there.
especially because it is a big difference with Chris Pratt. But
and it's funny we should mention him because I feel that, okay, so you have Tony Stark, and you have Doctor Strange, who's Wizard Tony Stark. And you have Star-Lord, who's Space Tony Stark. And now we have tiny/giant Tony Stark.
I was gonna go with ex-con Tony Stark.
Ex-con
See,
Tony Stark.
I don't put Ant-Man in the same realm as Tony Stark, because Tony Stark is that snarky asshole, Yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's no asshole in Paul Rudd's character.
I feel like he's snarky, though.
He's snarky, but he's not an asshole. He's just that goofy guy who somehow ended up in this situation.
Well, it's like the alpha versus the underdog, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt that there's absolutely no limit to Tony Stark's resources. And the great thing about Ant-Man is that it always deals with Scott Lang. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. It deals with all of Scott Lang's limitations.
Yeah.
He has this ankle bracelet in the second movie. He in the first movie, all he wanted was to get to a point where he could like see his daughter on a regular basis. It's about him working around his limitations and rising above them instead of having all the resources in the world. I think that makes a big difference.
Well, he always steps back to this character, like when he's getting like to the brink of obnoxious, like he comes back and gets wholesome again.
Yeah.
It's not like something like Ace Ventura, because if you actually go back and watch the first Ace Ventura, not the second one, which I think is the second one seems more based on the cartoon.
Oh yeah,
the sequel
absolutely.
To the first one. Like, there are moments where Ace Ventura is a very normal person, but because he's Ace Ventura, there are scenes where he just goes so far over the deep end that if you're watching it as an adult, you're like, when I was a kid, I thought this was funny. Now I'm just kind of uncomfortable. But Ant-Man's able to like reel that in,
Absolutely. And I think that the performances in this are really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they spent enough time with that aspect of the film. You were surprised, John, that Douglas was in this, that he agreed to do
another one.
Yeah. Michael Douglas.
Oh no, I don't. I was surprised that he got himself into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Because he's old as balls.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like it
He's
was
starting to really look like his dad.
Yeah.
Right?
So wow, you are really look like Kirk Douglas right now.
Dudes, what did you guys think of the oh, I'm sorry, did you have more, John? John just looked at me like I ran over his dog. I'm so sorry.
Well, no, I didn't want to like just have this be like too free association and like we forget like what we're talking about here.
I'm sorry.
But Brian, to your point, I feel like, in Green Mile, how Tom Hanks as an old man can't die. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen that 1999 movie. I feel that's Kirk Douglas. Like they wheel him out at award shows. He's like 103.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive.
He's in his hundreds.
When they roll him out now, I just want to hide under the bed because he can't really talk or express himself. It's like the saddest thing I've ever seen. But yeah, no. The
it's
problem.
just a big hunk of withered meat that they just wheel out.
Okay, please never say withered meat again.
I am Spartacus.
Anyway, no, but my point was because this is related to age, not necessarily Kirk Douglas, but what did you guys think of the anti-aging?
They're getting really good at it.
I like it. I don't
really good at it. Oh,
because
yeah.
this was prevalent in both movies, right?
It's just like any other special effect. I mean, because it's the human face, I think that we are all like so much more protective of it.
It's uncanny valley. Our biology, knows.
Because I remember when we did our episode in Rogue One, how I pointed out that I didn't mind Tarkin, and Brian basically tried to kill me.
No, there's a difference.
He crapped his pants a little. It's all right. I agree.
The difference I see is that the actor's alive, and they're using their performance. So, that's the difference. You can't really compare Tarkin, who was a complete digital recreation.
Of a dead man, which is also upsetting.
And yeah, they had an actor who did it who kind of looked like him, but not really. So
because he's dead.
Because he's dead. There is that. So my issue with that was that it was so over the top in how phony it looked.
It was egregious too.
I thought it didn't quite look realistic. And it did trigger my uncanny valley of going that's not a person. Plus, he's dead. So the difference with this is that, Michelle Pfeiffer especially, who I thought they did better on her de-aging than Michael Douglas's de-aging.
She looks amazing, though. I'm not going to lie. She looks real good, even as herself.
Baby girl still rocking it.
Whoa. Whoa. Well, you two are a completely biased.
I'm not sure she can still fit in the cat suit, but I'd like to see her try.
Oh, yeah, she could. Yeah, you got to understand. That was that was probably the first crush I had.
Yeah, I know.
Fucking Catwoman.
Boing.
That and Elvira. Okay, it was both those
all right,
two.
Guys, both y'all need to settle down.
Guys, Grease 2 is her finest performance, right?
I have never seen
Absolutely.
Grease 2.
Oh my God, I've never seen it either, but I heard it's terrible.
I sat through it. Choice.
Why?
I don't know.
What is wrong with you? But anyway, but I think that's interesting because Uncanny Valley is going to keep us from letting the AI robots take over because we're going to know it's not human. But it actually, I agree with you, Brian. I thought it worked better in this film because they simply de-aged him to the Gordon Gekko days.
That's right.
Well, they also did Michelle Pfeiffer and Lawrence Fishburne as well.
They did a good job with Lawrence Fishburne. I thought that looked good. I like to call him
Larry Fishburne
because that's his name.
That's how I met him in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Oh, was he Larry?
He was Lawrence Fishburne.
Or that's how you met him in Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, yeah.
He was fantastic in Pee-wee's Playhouse. Thank you.
I'd see this as any other special effect. There are, even something like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, they're still, in those movies, they still hold up. There's still a couple of shots that are shitty, but because it's a good movie, your brain just lets them fly by, right? And, no, it doesn't look flawless because it can't. It's a special effect, but I'm more willing to accept that than if the movie was complete shit. Now, granted, the technology wasn't there in 2003, but X-Men: The Last Stand, when they de-aged Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, I was like, oh God, no! What is this? No, granted, that was the beginning of the movie, so I didn't know how bad it was gonna be. But now that I've seen all the way through and I watch back, I go.
Do you know what's funny? I don't think I've seen that part since the year it came out, and I don't remember it being bad. I remember hardly even noticing it at the time. I want to see it now to be to be angry, I guess, because it's not very good.
I wish I could remember what the brand was, but they originally did this in a commercial. I think they played it one of the Super Bowls, in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And it was either Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin, and I think it was Frank Sinatra, and he was singing with Nancy Sinatra, and they did the very beginning of like the face thing, and people were so wowed by it. But now you watch it, and it's like remember when you were impressed by Nintendo 64 graphics?
Yes.
And now you just laugh your ass off.
Well, it's the same thing. Like this whole thing kind of came about because of the movie Benjamin Button.
Yeah,
that was like one of the first, at least in film, real tests. And I think Benjamin Button came out before X-Men: The Last Stand, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong on that. But I mean, they were doing the same sort of thing, you know, either de-aging or increasing the aging process on Brad Pitt to really, you know, sell it. And I think they've come a long way. I just think that you can't really compare this with Tarkin because they digitally recreated a person, you know.
Right.
Well, guys, I think we're getting a hint ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the movie?
I told you, I thought it was good.
I liked both of them. Like I said, my experience was a little different because I probably will meld the two in my mind a bit just because I saw them so close together when that's not usually that common, you know, because I watched it the night before. Thanks, Redbox. But, you know, I thought that the second one took what the first one had kind of presented to us, you know, took it to the next level. You know, I really liked seeing Evangeline Lilly's character, you know, more in the forefront, you know. Yeah. I liked seeing that. I'm always going to like seeing women as scientists in film. Like, that's always going to be great to me. So especially the fact that her mom was a scientist as well, you know, seeing smart women. You know, this had way more of a female presence than most Marvel movies do as well, because Ghost, you know, also was a woman. So I really enjoyed seeing a little bit more of an even like breakdown as far as that's concerned. I thought they thoughtfully used the characters. You know, I thought they thoughtfully used Michael Pena because, or is it Michael?
Pena.
Michael Pena. His character's like a little much in the first movie because he's like always there, but in the second one it was like a little bit, you know. And two, like, I think that there was a nice thread of logic because as soon as, you know, Paul Rudd's character, the big obstacle for him is that he has this ankle bracelet on from his probation, you know, from the events in Germany that take place, you know, of Civil War. Yeah. And, you know, Captain America Civil War. And they, when they have that thread running through, I think that was a nice setup of obstacle for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that bothered me though, is the whole connection to Civil War here, and like everything in this, you see this interweaving set of now 21 movies. Is that correct?
Losing track, but yeah, probably.
It's 20 or 21.
Carrying less every day.
Yeah. But, you know, and everything, like, it's odd how they get all these things to make sense. Like, the only thing that I thought was just a glaring mistake was putting Ant-Man in Civil War. And it was two reasons. They wanted to get as many characters in as they could, and I'm sure they have a certain amount of movies that Paul Rudd is on the hook for.
Contracted.
And they want to get their money's worth. But this guy spends the whole first movie just trying to get back to his daughter and to not be a criminal.
And to not fuck up. Like, that's sort of the theme of Ant-Man 1. Don't fuck up.
Only for, like, Cap to slip into his DMs and be like, hey, boo. You want to, like...
Slip into your DMs.
You want to, like, come and help me, like, save the world? And then we can, like, work out and we can spot each other and be bros. And he was like, oh, I can't pass that up. Cap is dreamy. And so he goes and breaks the law and becomes a criminal again for no other reason other than because of Tony Stark and Captain America's, like, you know, they're having a problem with their relationship.
They're having a falling out.
Yeah. And so he basically just shits on everything that he did in the first movie to do this. And then,
for him to be so careless after being so careful.
And it feels like in the second one, they almost have to just kind of acknowledge that and like, oh, he's on house arrest. No, he's a terrorist. Wouldn't he have gone back to jail? He already has a record. And that's 3 strikes, isn't it?
Well, they did him. He did everybody a solid in the first movie, I think.
And
they kind of took that into account.
I don't have a problem with it. They didn't dwell on it the whole time. You know, it was maybe a couple lines here or there.
They threaded,
but they had to acknowledge it in the first place because it was a mistake.
Well, not necessarily that, because the last time we saw him, he was in jail, and Cap was breaking him out. Okay, so there had to be some sort of resolution.
Wait, was that one of those cutscenes at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't usually sit through.
How is it? I don't remember anything about Civil War, and I tried to watch it 3 times. I hated that movie.
Yeah, but the point is they had to have some sort of resolution to that. They had to have some sort of tie-in. So the ankle bracelet thing, it becomes a great plot device because I mean, the one thing I love about this movie is how un-Marvel it is like everything else.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
think that's the winning
so
part of this
not
franchise.
a Marvel movie. It is more of a heist movie with comedy in it. You know, you've got, and there's no one villain. You've got the FBI as one villain, and they're inept. Okay, you've got the tech mobster played by what's his name, Walton Goggins.
Guy man. Dude guy.
Sonny Birch. That's his name.
I thought he looked like.
I thought he was funny as all hell. Like, I love him in Vice Principals.
I thought he looked so much like the guy from Die Hard.
Yeah.
The one who Ellis, right?
Ellis.
I thought he looked so much like Ellis from Die Hard.
Hans. Bobby.
I like smacked John in the theater, and I was like, Ellis. I was like, that's Ellis, and he's like, no, idiot. Like, he's not the right age at all.
Look, you're a man with a plan. You didn't think there'd be some poison pill macking up the works. Am I right? Capiche?
Capiche? Oh my
But
god!
my point is that you've got multiple villains on all sides that are after our heroes.
and then the
okay?
foil,
and the
which is Ghost.
that's right. Well, Ghost and Lawrence Fishburne's character,
Larry.
Dr. Bill Foster,
Larry Fishburne.
Larry Fishburne,
Friend of the show.
friend of the show.
I wish we
You
were
can
friends.
be Lair.
But what's nice
wish
is
we were
that
friends.
you know, once this movie gets going, you know, and each of these different villains, these different like obstacles that they all have to face, start all coming together and converging during that one car chase. That's when it's like, oh my god,
Brian,
this is so not a Marvel movie.
I think you got that right with the second thing when you said obstacles. These aren't characters or interesting in any way. They're obstacles.
I think they're
especially the used car salesman that wants the thing for money.
I mean, I don't know. Like that wasn't the strongest aspect of anything, but I mean, I thought his performance was chilling at times. You know, where he was just like very ruthless. Like,
Oh, I wouldn't call him chilling. I'd call him.
I call it boring.
I don't call him boring. Walter Goggins.
Yeah, the guy that like he meets at the restaurant with Wasp.
Yeah. He's more of just an annoyance. You know, I kind of view him as an annoyance.
Guys, he was straight up ready to murder a bitch. Like, you don't think that's chilling? I think that's chilling. He had no problem with murder.
These movies that always happens.
Well, that's the thing is in this movie, you might straight up murder someone, but at the same time, he's not. I don't view him as a threat. I view him almost as kind of like a cartoon type villain.
I suppose.
Where you're like, okay, the hero is going to find a way to kick your ass anyway, and they do.
Right.
But
I don't know.
he's also a necessary evil.
He was ready.
He wants the technology. Everyone wants the technology.
Literally
That's
a
the big thing.
necessary evil. Well, let's talk about the more interesting foil then. Like, let's talk about Ghost.
I think she's weak.
Yeah?
I do too.
I thought she was a weak villain.
Okay.
I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get away from the rival. Like from the first movie, you had the rival CEO who worked at PIM, who wanted to make his own Ant-Man suit. And that, honestly, I think that was one of the weakest points.
Yeah, that was a little boring.
The first movie.
Well, that's just Iron Man.
Right. Exactly.
When Jeff Bridges wants to make his own Iron Man suit.
Yes.
And it's Jeff Bridges, and you're like, well, that's the villain.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so the
He's
dude's
not just
bad
in
now?
here for shit. Yeah.
But the point is like they had to do something to really change the villain. So they made the villain someone sympathetic, someone who isn't a villain because they mustache twirling, but because the fact that they're doing this to save their own lives because some sort of thing happened that is killing them.
So you're saying it's not Jurassic World?
I haven't seen.
Oh my God, John saw it. He
first
said
one?
it was fucking.
You mean the
Jurassic
second one?
World 2, Electric
I haven't
Boogaloo.
seen that.
He said it was fucking terrible.
Oh, it's so fucking bad. Sorry for the sideways video, everybody. I did not know you can't go live with your phone like in the correct format.
Right? Like you tried to be a good filmmaker and do it the right aspect ratio, and it bit you in the ass, didn't it? Sorry, sorry, friend.
My point is that I felt that Ghost was kind of unnecessary. They had to have some sort of superhero villain that they could face.
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
the
like-
idea about like, you know, her winking in and out and the particle like problems that she was having where too, I mean, the stakes were quite high for her because she was going to die.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the Penguin Catwoman rule,
Yes.
right? Like he can't really fight Penguin because he's just all little and you know he just kick his ass in 5 minutes. So you got to have Catwoman in there to kick him.
That's right.
So you got to have one villain that they can fight and one villain who's like, I'm the cerebral mastermind. I'm the used Hummer salesman that wants to like take
Used
technology.
Hummer. Used Hummer. Is there
salesman.
anything douchier than a used Hummer,
Hey,
guys?
he got Model 2s on sale here. Look at this butte. Smack the hood.
Oh my God.
But and then of course you've got the FBI agent who
was a bit over the top.
it was really over the top.
Okay, guys, not to deviate here, but can we talk about the comedy? Because I really think that they towed that line beautifully in the first one.
Yeah.
And in this one, I think there were times where they just went too far.
It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
No, it's
Well, no.
Ragnarok, which I'm sorry.
I love Ragnarok.
I know people love that movie, but the more and more I think about it, Ragnarok sucks.
No.
It's my Civil War. Like,
No,
your Civil War.
no.
It's my Civil War.
Okay, well,
I
hey,
love Ragnarok.
I didn't see Ragnarok.
It's an incoherent film that doesn't have a continuous
come
thread.
on.
It's too funny. It's
It's supposed... You're talking about fucking gods, for God's sake. What are you supposed to do?
Here's
They
the
did
thing.
serious already.
It was the McDonald's of the Marvel movie.
Look at Dark World. That was supposed to be serious.
Hey, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is funny as well, but that movie's touching.
Oh,
Right,
my
well-
nipples.
Well, here's. Oh my god.
Okay, it's not perfect.
Dear-
it's James Gunn. He kind of
Dear
sucks.
God. Okay, so here's my litmus test. Okay, because the first Guardians of
losing it here.
I'm just gonna punch you both in the face. No, so the first Guardians of the Galaxy I thought was quite funny, and then the second one really pushed the comedy even further. But the problem with Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and I think I even said this in our review, is that it was so comedic that when it did have a serious moment, I was like ready for the other shoe
There
to
you
drop,
go.
like ready for it to be pulled out from underneath.
There you go.
I did not feel that way about Ant-Man 2. I thought the comedy was still on that line, but when something serious happened, it still felt serious. I still felt the gravity, and I wasn't waiting for the punchline. So I think that that's the litmus test for me. You know, if you felt differently,
Well, I
then
thought
you're
that-
wrong. No, I'm just kidding. No, if you felt differently, I mean, like that's, you know, comedy and all of this is so subjective anyway. Like that makes sense, but you know.
Well, I thought there was a few too many callbacks, you know, to jokes from the first movie.
Okay.
You know, and like this isn't exactly the fairest example because this movie's so absurd to begin with. But when you saw the Beavis and Butthead movie, you were just waiting for Cornholio,
Yes.
right? Like that's gonna happen at some point. And in this one, it's like, okay, Michael Pena's character is going to go off and tell a meaningless story at least once. You know, there's going to be that joke. There's, you know, they're going to reference a bunch of things, you know, that you saw in the first one. And it's like,
But here's the thing. That was funny because the movie itself is acknowledging that joke is over the top and ridiculous. Because when that happens, he's getting the truth serum, which they keep going back and forth saying, it's not truth serum. Oh, but it tells me things that I want to know. Then it's truth serum. So, but once that happens, his friends are like, oh man, you put a coin in the machine. You got to sit through the whole ride. It's recognizing that joke is over the top and goofy, which is what makes it funny. Like that's what I thought it was funny. I'm like, oh, they're doing the whole thing again.
I know this isn't the Ragnarok versus Ant-Man podcast.
Are you fucking kidding me?
But I felt like those jokes, they fit in the moment. Where in, say, Ragnarok, the jokes just seem shoehorned in, and I'm like, okay, this is just deviating from the progress of the movie, especially with everything with Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum is a treasure.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
Yes.
Everything he does is gold. At least his scenes are gold.
Like I said, guys, I
He's a
didn't
blooming gold.
I
yeah.
didn't see, you know, Ragnarok, so I can't speak to this.
In
Y'all.
defense of that, I would say that Ragnarok is a departure from the path that Thor was on. Okay? Thor was billed to be a very serious movie with no comedy at all whatsoever, and they decided to veer off of that into something that's more comedic. And honestly, I think it fits that world better than what they had before. It's just me. The idea of a Norse god who's a superhero and existing in the universe at a time when it was the 60s and 70s, which is wacky, goofy time, then it fits. And if you look
Right.
at Jack Kirby's artwork, it's reminiscent in Ragnarok. So I have no problem with that.
I just think they made a shit ton of money with Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was a breath of fresh air. So they said, let's make all of our movies like that now.
Maybe. I mean, like, let's try.
possible.
Let's get back to actual Ant-Man instead of Ragnarok. Even though I value your opinion, John.
But
so do we want to go over what the actual like conflict is in this?
yeah, and I was just about to head there because the one thing I like about this movie is that the protagonists are leading the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not some guy came with a ship to Earth and has a big laser in the sky, and now the heroes just have to stop him because they're good.
You mean every single movie from Marvel to date?
Yeah.
That's why I said it's an unmarvel Marvel movie.
Yeah, and as we had just mentioned before, these villains are mostly just in their way to get Michelle Pfeiffer. So the idea is that if you don't have like your safety harness, for lack of a better term, on your Ant-Man outfit and you shrink, you'll just keep shrinking forever.
And end up in the quantum
Your regulator.
realm.
Yeah, it was your regulator.
Yeah. You'll enter in the quantum realm, which happened to Michelle Pfeiffer, who plays Michael Douglas's wife,
Janet Van Dyne.
Yeah, and we see this briefly in the first one because Scott, Paul Rudd's character, goes to the quantum realm briefly, but he's able to pull himself back.
And so the idea is the movie opens up with Evangeline Lilly's character Wasp is sitting, which is the daughter to Michael Douglas, and they say, let's go get your mom because she's been in there for like 20 years or
30.
whatever. I think I now have the technology to pull her out. So like, let's
because it didn't
go
occur
get
to
her.
them that she was still alive,
Right.
but the fact that Scott came back like got Michael Douglas's character to thinking like, oh, maybe she's okay, like maybe she's in there.
Yeah. And so the whole film revolves around them building the technology and mastering the technology in order to, go get her. And Ant-Man only fits into the movie because he's having like dreams of Michelle Pfeiffer, which don't we all?
Well, you end up finding out that when Scott in the first film did go to the quantum realm, that he somehow got what they called quantum entanglement with Michelle Pfeiffer's character.
Right,
Because
they're-
this
they're
movie
connected.
needed that to have
Because
happened.
this movie needed that to happen, which is
Yeah,
fine.
that didn't make a ton of sense to
It
me.
didn't
but
make
meh.
sense, but it's like, okay, whatever. I'll go with it.
I'll allow it.
That's a moment where I can suspend disbelief. Okay. And you end up finding out that basically he's got because of this entanglement, he knows her location subconsciously only when the gateway to the quantum realm is open.
Right.
So the first, I'd say, what would you say, like 2/3 in the movie is really just getting the parts together to open the gateway so that they can then get the location out of Scott's head and then go to that location in the quantum realm.
And this whole time, like that, basically they've kidnapped him. Like he has, he had an ankle bracelet on.
Yeah.
And one of the ants is wearing it at his house and doing all kinds of Scott things.
Well, I love the fact that Evangeline Lilly says to him, "Oh yeah, we've completely been spying on you and know your entire daily routine. You do what? 3 hours of TV watching, 2 hours of sitting in the bathroom. What do you do for 2 hours in the bathroom?" And he's like, "It's not that long."
Meanwhile, they did like a cool montage of him like bowling and building birdhouses and shit like that. Like, it seems like he's actually a lot busier than that.
And playing rock band.
Yeah.
You got to fill the time, okay?
That's right. But the point is that while they're trying to just get the parts together to make this quantum gateway, they're on the run from, as I said, Sonny Birch, who's this tech underground mobster guy, the FBI, who is suspicious that Scott really isn't at home, which he isn't, obviously, and Ava, also known as Ghost, who has her own reasons why she needs the technology. It turns out that her father knew Hank Pym and worked with him.
Cowboy Curtis.
Well, no, that's one person. Remember, there's another. It was her father. That wasn't Cowboy Curtis.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Cowboy Curtis took her in.
Took her in, yes.
Yeah.
I love
Not
you
her
guys
dad.
are just calling him
Yeah,
Cowboy
no,
Curtis.
but,
That's the new thing now.
Ava's father was part of Hank Pym's team, and I guess they had a falling out. Which Hank Pym says, "Oh, he was a terrorist. He stole technology. Blah blah blah." It's not really expanded upon, but the point is that he continued his work, and a horrible accident happened with the quantum realm where it ended up causing Ava to phase in and phase out of our reality.
Right.
So she's constantly being ripped apart and put back together over and over again. And you find out that her character has like, what was it? What did they say? Like 6 or 7 days to live or something like that.
The ticking time bomb.
The ticking time bomb.
She's the MacGuffin.
That's right. So, she ends up over the course of her life being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was nice how they weaved that in from the television series, because in the TV series, I know none of you guys watch it, but they do have a tendency to take people with powers and make them agents to do certain things. So it was nice that they said, "Oh yeah, she was an agent. She was doing covert stuff, that sort of thing." But she ends up trying to get to the quantum realm and trying to get Janet so that she can absorb her energy to correct herself, to fix herself. So that's her motivation. It's really nothing more than just self-preservation at this point.
Yeah. And it's very serendipitous that this all seems to be happening at the same time.
That's right.
I mean, they did all read the script, no doubt about that.
But it kind of bothered me that, all Paul Rudd wants is to be with his daughter and to be an upstanding member of society. And they're like, yeah, we're going to kidnap you because we desperately want my moms. And you're coming with us whether you like it or not. He's like, well, if the FBI shows up to my house, I'm going back to jail for like 30 fucking years. And you're like, yeah, suck it.
Well,
I mean, I know that builds tension because, like, oh, what if they do show up?
Well, there are tensions therein anyway, because I mean, Scott stole the suit to go do Germany, so so
and he did.
Team Scientist is super pissed at him.
That's
for
right,
that, and maybe rightfully so. But two, I mean, like, I don't know that we can understand a certain plot point here, John, because like we're not parents, like, so I mean, I get the impression that people would do anything for their kids. So,
but he's trying to do the one thing for his kid.
But like, he just wants to be there for her, and
they're keeping him from doing that. They won't let him go back to his house.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, he was held hostage,
Well,
basically.
Yeah,
so,
by the other heroes.
Well,
I guess. I mean, but this is about gray area, right?
Hold on now.
Okay,
Hold on.
all right.
Simmer down now. Okay. The point is that in a point in the movie where he realizes that he could lose everything, he does go back to his house, and he does leave, Hope and Hank in the lab when shit's going down. Okay, so he does do that part, but his own daughter says, I want you to be the hero that you are. So she's basically giving him permission to be that hero.
And
so he's fulfilled it.
Yeah, he wants to live up to
She's
her
also 8.
expectations.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how cute she is for
She's
a second?
really cute.
In the first movie, I was like dead every single scene she was in because she's just so adorable. And now that she's a little bit older, she's still so cute. Oh my God, she killed me the whole time.
Do we want to talk about how Paul Rudd had very little, maybe not the best use of words, but he had very little agency in this movie? He didn't lead the story.
Oh, yeah.
Everything happened to him.
He was I mean, but you just said early on that you were glad that the protagonists were leading the story. So do you mean Hope and Hank?
That's what he means.
Hope and Hank. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay,
But I guess I'm saying that
because that's a little contradictory.
the protagonist characters, which I would even include Paul Rudd in that, they have a goal, and there are people that are getting in the way. There's not an antagonist that has a goal, and then he has to be stopped.
And they're trying to stop him. I
Right.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure I understood.
yeah.
Well, I mean, like sometimes your circumstances happen to you. I mean, sometimes life happens to you. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I liked the scenes where the FBI did like show up to his house and he made it back in the nick of time. Like I'm always going to like that last minute thing. But the one point where Cassie covers for him at first and is like, no, my dad's really sick. And, buys him the extra time, to get there and everything. Like, I think that's a neat way of showing that he always shows up for her.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, he's not going to let anything get in his way to like get back to what he needs to do and whatnot. I just don't know how he got the ankle bracelet back on so fast.
Suspension of disbelief.
He's an electrician though, right? Like, I think that was a really nice thing that they built into his story of him being like a master, and this is obviously like predates the movie, but of him being like a master thief. And I don't know if he was always an electrician, like in the comics.
Yeah.
But that being a part of the movies, like that really helped me. Like, oh, okay, he's like good at this shit. Like, and when he's tinkering with his own suit and stuff, like that feels authentic.
Right.
But but he doesn't lead anything in this movie. And now I know it's one of those situations that how do you when everything is so sciencey and he's just like some dude and he
Yeah.
has to sit back and be like, do you guys put quantum in front of every word that you say? Like,
That was funny.
I like
and
that.
thankfully it wasn't just like we showed up in this movie. It's like, yeah, I just read a bunch of books and now I'm as smart as you guys. Like that would have.
Oh my God, that would have made me
That's why I say he's very much not like Tony Stark.
He's
in
the
that he
everyman.
knows
He's
everything.
the anti-hero. He's
Yeah.
the underdog.
The
Like, that's why-
anti-hero?
Nah. Yes.
Yeah.
But he's the underdog, and like that's why we root for him, because like he has been kicked in the ribs by life a few times and we're not sure he's gonna like pull himself out of his circumstances. That's relatable.
Yeah.
Everybody has felt like that. Like life has just like kicked them in the kidney once,
Well, I mean, and he is relatable in the sense that like he's not super good at being like a superhero.
Yeah.
Like, and that's cool. He's not like
Again, relatable.
you look at like I'm getting a little sick of how Iron Man has some kind of new super slick technology for whatever the situation is. Remember Batman and Robin when they like kick their boots and they have ice skates in them, which wouldn't even fit? It's like, Batman's thought of everything.
Why are we bringing that up? We don't need to bring that up.
The point is like
that brings out
Avengers
PTSD. Please don't do that.
Avengers Infinity War. It's like Iron Man's like, oh, my hoodie and my jeans are now an Iron Man suit because I could do whatever the movie needs me to do.
Listen, the man is Tony Stark. He's basically Bruce Wayne. So yeah, he can build all
Bruce
that
Wayne
shit.
on steroids.
He is Bruce Wayne on steroids. Okay, so I can believe that because I know the character. The character is someone who's so smart, he's able to figure shit out and build his own tech and do whatever it needs to be done for that moment.
Well, not that I'm so simple that I have to deeply relate to a character to be into a movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can relate to Ant-Man.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like he's putting his tech, like, what does this button do? Oh, why isn't this thing working? Oh, I'm getting my ass kicked. Like he seems more relatable than Tony Stark, who's like, oh, I'm calling in Veronica, which is my giant 50-foot Iron Man thing that I have in space that you just learned about now. I'm Iron Man.
I think we can, basically experience the story better through Scott Lang's character, because what Scott Lang's character does is, in moments of panic and fear and things like that, he's cracking jokes. That might be a way of coping with everything that's going on around you.
And they seem natural jokes
Yes.
too. It's not like the Ghostbusters remake where they just said, "Hey, you ladies are all funny. Just crack like jokes," but they're cracking Second City jokes. They're cracking professional comedian jokes.
Right.
They're not doing it as their characters where, and it's like, this doesn't seem natural. This seems like professional comedians are supposed to be scientists.
Yeah.
Like every one of Scott Lang's jokes are like in the moment. Like they're funny because they seem like something somebody would actually say.
Again, there's a humanizing element. It's very relatable. There's a reason why the everyman trope does work, because too, especially by contrast, I find that Hope's character is, possibly a little bit unrelatable just because she is so smart, so focused, and it takes a lot for her to let her guard down.
Are you saying she's a Mary Sue?
No,
Are you suggesting?
No, I don't, because I'm not, because Mary Sue implies that she's perfect in every way, and if she were to be perfect in every way, she would be like more emotionally relatable as well. And I think that she does have certain strengths and weaknesses.
Speaking of that, I hated that they went to the trope of you went to help out Captain America and spot him when he was shirtless powerlifting, and because of that, we had to break up, because it's way harder to have our relationship continue in a movie than it is to just recycle the let's find romance that we did in the first one. It's the Ghostbusters 2 model.
Oh,
It would be so
sure.
it'd be so much harder to show Bakeman and Dana together. So let's just have them break up and then get back together.
Right. Well, I mean, because it has that element of of the tension there too, because they kind of did that in Black Panther as well, because Lupita Nyong'o's character was broken up with Chadwick Boseman?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. All I could think of was T'Challa, and I was like, I want to say use his real name. He just is T'Challa at this point. But the fact that they were already broken up, that was more tension than him just being with her. You know what I mean? Like that, they did that already.
Yeah, I mean, but I would say, the only thing I thought Spider-Man 3 did correctly
What?
was there were mistakes along the way, but the relationship dynamic of Mary Jane and
Yes.
Spider-Man. Peter Parker, because they didn't just say, oh, by this movie, oh, Pete, you were too into your web sling, we're broke up again. Oh, I gotta chase you. All your feelings. Oh. They were together, and it was a strain on the relationship. They kept moving forward. They didn't just go back to get back to where they were.
I mean,
Right.
and if they did that with Ant-Man, I think it would be very interesting, because they're both superheroes. They're both working together.
Right.
It's not just, Mary Jane is coping with, Peter being Spider-Man. It's them both worrying about each other's safety.
Yeah.
Doing this. So, I mean, that,
And knowing the
that part
stakes.
would have been nice.
And knowing the stakes in a more real way, I would
But
say.
I also understand why they didn't do it, because a lot of these movies, they're not trusting that you saw the first one, at least in my opinion. I think a lot of, I think
you'd have been
Marvel-
lost if you hadn't seen the first.
Well, that's what I'm
Ant-Man,
saying.
honestly.
Really?
I don't think you would have been. I think if you didn't see Ant-Man and you saw this one, you would get it. because you definitely get that these characters know each other from before.
Right.
But I don't think you necessarily need to watch the first one to get this one. And I think that's probably why they didn't just pick up from there, that they had to be some sort of, hey, we're broken up, let's get back together thing, because they're relying on people who haven't seen the first Ant-Man see this one first.
Brian, that's an interesting question that you raise there. What do you guys think that filmmakers owe to audiences on sequels in terms of, do you think that they owe it to them to get them caught up on the movie, or if it's tough shit if you didn't see the first one, why are you here at the second one?
I think there's a line of minimum enjoyment.
Yeah.
So like, I think there's like a statute of minimum enjoyment. So like, I think that they owe the audience enough that anybody can appreciate the movie, but I don't think there's anything wrong with putting things in a film that if you saw the first one or first ones, that you enjoy it more. So I think there's like a minimum level and a maximum level, and they need to operate just at the minimum of explaining, and then the maximum of like everybody like who saw all the movies is gonna like love it even more.
So what you're saying is it doesn't have to be Halloween 4, which takes its first 15 minutes to recap the first two movies.
Exactly.
I think that you can, it's tough because you don't want to alienate people. And I think that certain ways you alienate audiences. If you ignore everything from the first one and everything that references the first one, you're going to alienate the people who saw the first one. No. And if you decide that you're going to explain everything, it's going to be great for people who haven't seen the first movie, but it's going to piss off the people who've already seen the first one. So, I mean, it's a tough one to do. I think kind of in the same realm that Elaine thinks, I think you have to sprinkle in bits and pieces. I think story should come before anything. I think in this regard, they looked at it in terms of, we want to make sure we get more people to see this movie than we saw Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Because Ant-Man, I don't think I think it did well.
I think understandably so is one of their lowest grossing movies, but I mean, it's Ant-Man.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they probably said, okay, fine, make it so that you don't need to see the first one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's probably the reason why they did it.
Well, you need something for everybody, right? Like it's like throwing a wedding, okay? So like you have, like the cedar plank salmon for the adults, but like you have the kids table and chicken tenders for the little ones. You know what I mean? Like you appeal to everybody by doing that. Like by
chicken tenders.
Chicken tenders do sound really good.
Well, I think there are certain movies where they don't have to explain it to you for the sequels. Like, why are you watching the fourth one if you haven't seen the others? But I think that Marvel is such a brand that you're not going to see Ant-Man and Wasp. You're going to see the new Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Really? Because I do feel like at least like Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy, I do see them as separate entities from the rest of the Marvel universe. Maybe because I just view them as less exhausting, and that's just personally me. But like this definitely seems like an underdog movie. This does not seem like an Avengers movie to me.
Right. But I think that they've done such a good job of branding themselves. And oddly, for a 20 to 21 film, whenever we're on, I'm sorry, I don't know, interweaving series that works so well, one after another, is that you almost don't have to have seen the others to appreciate each one of these films, which is such a hard task to pull off, considering like Avengers 3 pulls from Avengers 2 and 1 and Iron Man and Captain America and Thor.
I don't know, y'all. I didn't see Ragnarok, and when we saw Avengers 2, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
3,
why are we in in 3, sorry.
You're like, why does Thor have an eye patch?
No.
Why is Thanos beating him up in Loki? Why is he with Loki?
No, as you recall, my first question was, what the fuck did Thor do to his hair? That was my first question. And then I was like, where the
that
hell
happened to him.
I was like, where the hell did his eye
Yeah.
go? So it was like hair first, eye second. Just want to make sure y'all know my priorities.
Yeah. Now, since we're talking about Avengers, do you want to close it out by talking a little bit about
the cutscene?
The cutscenes.
Dude, everyone dumped their pants on that cutscene, man.
Guys, hold on. We haven't talked about my favorite part of this movie.
What's your favorite part?
Is that it has so little Marvel Cinematic Universe world building.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
I mean, obviously it has enough, and I mean, we'll get to the ending there in a minute, but like, it's just so refreshing to see an Ant-Man movie that's about Ant-Man.
And it's not a
yeah.
checklist. It's not
And
a
it did-
checklist of, well, we got to get this done, this
Didn't
done,
feel
this
like
done.
a prequel to anything.
It's the most shameless movie Iron Man 2?
No.
Iron
one's
Man
of
3
Ultron?
is worse, isn't it?
Age of Ultron? Yeah.
Age of Ultron.
I think it's a battle between those two. Yeah.
But Ant-Man didn't do that, right?
Right, yeah, it was just about the Ant-Man characters. And I mean, there were things that were squeaked in there, as obviously they need to, and I understand that, but
Squeakles.
it
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
it was the squeakquel of the first Ant-Man.
It was.
But, it really felt like its own film, and God, that seemed refreshing.
Oh yeah. No, I like that about this franchise very much. Again, it's what I also like about Guardians of the Galaxy. That's exactly what I was saying before. They feel like separate entities from the rest of the franchise.
Now they don't.
In their humor.
Now, I'm sure Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to be riddled with, world building, because now they're part of the other characters.
It depends on when they take place.
Yeah.
So, like, Ant-Man was able to, I think, be separate from all the Marvel Universe world building because of the fact that it takes place before the events of Infinity War.
Sort of.
And I heard rumor that the third Guardians of the Galaxy is going to take place before the events of Infinity War.
Oh, interesting.
So if that's the case, then yeah, it can remain its own separate entity. Now, I want to get back to the ending parts of this, where we do get that little hint of Infinity War goodness. Okay.
So big spoiler alert.
Big spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen Infinity War and you haven't seen Ant-Man and Wasp and you don't want us to ruin
if
the
they've
end,
listened to the whole episode and haven't seen Ant-Man and Wasp, we just ruined everything for them.
I mean, but like, this is a big one.
Yeah,
this is a big ruin.
Yeah, we did.
This last part's a big ruin, especially if you haven't seen Infinity War.
And it kind of ruins the movie.
It kind of does. So at the end of the movie, we get a cutscene in which they're opening up a smaller quantum realm. This is after they've got Janet.
Yeah, Hope and Hank and Janet.
Yeah, we need to make a point that they did get Michelle Pfeiffer,
her.
obviously.
Yeah,
and
really quick. Yeah. She wasn't batshit crazy from being in the quantum realm
No.
from 30 years. I thought that was very odd. Like, they said something about
She
how like
evolved.
she evolved and like got like powers and shit. So like that's kind of interesting. But like, I don't know. Just from being alone by itself, no pun intended. Well, that's not true. Pun is always intended. But being alone, like solitary, like that fucks with you. Like being all by yourself, like that's been proven to make you batshit.
You're surprised that she didn't wipe her whole body in feces.
I mean, no, seriously. I mean, she should have come out of the quantum realm like. She should have been nuts. I'm telling you, she should have been crazy, and she wasn't. But it's
should have
fine.
been like, Hank, this is my new lover, Quibquab.
Right?
Quibquab is a quantum bug. These are our little mutant children.
Kill me! Seriously, I mean, there should have been more consequences, in my
Quibquab,
opinion. But okay,
quantum bug.
Okay.
Fair warning: a projectile vomits putts.
But they do get Janet back. Hope and Hank are like super psyched about it, and then she just like jumps right into the science. Like she doesn't give a fuck that she's been missing for 30 years.
What they're trying to do is, she is able to stabilize a ghost to a little degree. Like it sounds like
enough that she doesn't die.
Yes.
Like she's not in danger of death anymore.
But they have to get more of those quantum healing cells,
particles,
or whatever the hell they are. Yeah, particles.
Well, I'm sure she wasn't healed because I'm sure she'll do something in Avengers Infinity War Part 2. Blah, 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 blah.
No, well,
Thanos' revenge.
Well, here's the thing. So Scott goes back into the quantum realm through the mini gateway, and
you're missing again.
What am I missing?
I mean, we need to point out that Michelle Pfeiffer's back, and she's with Michael Douglas, and they get a house on the beach, and it's like sunshine days gonna do.
Oh, the music.
Oh yeah, because
at the
he
end
shrank
of it.
his house.
Wonderful. Yeah. You got your mom back, and you got your wife. Everything's great, and now you're dead.
Oh my God, John.
Just like suck it, rest of the movie. Sorry. Now go on, Brian.
Well, I was going to say, Scott's in the quantum realm collecting the particles, and he's on the radio with Hope, and they're counting down until he's extracted out, and the radio cuts out. You find out that this is the exact moment when, Thanos is able to snap his fingers, and everyone turns to dust. So that's the end of the movie.
Well, and just like the endless bullshit of
Scott's
just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking in the quantum realm. But like he was wired in, and like he's like, guys, guys, this isn't funny. Like, and you just hear his voice, you know, like.
And I mean, at the end of the day, the Avengers movie, everybody that, you know, I'm sure the characters like Loki and possibly Gamora are dead, but all the ones that die from the snap, they're all going to come back. So it's not necessarily a sad ending, but if you're looking at this as just its own movie, it's like we spent 2 hours getting to this happy conclusion and dead.
It does take the wind out of the sails.
It is, but it also gives us, I mean, it answers the question of what time does this take place? Okay,
yeah, we see how it fits into the overall
And we also
timeline.
ask the question of where the hell was Ant-Man during the events of Infinity War? Well, now we know. He was in the quantum realm.
It's true.
When all this stuff was happening. So I got it. I understood why. It also opens up the idea of now the quantum realm is in play for Infinity War Part 2.
Right. I mean, it's all necessary to get to the next movie, but it kind of derails everything they worked
Well,
for.
and this is the thing that made it not feel like its own movie because it has to play by greater rules.
Yeah.
Now, what I didn't like is, so it's supposed to be randomly half the population.
Yeah.
So, like, if we're playing odds there, like, why did 3 people go missing? It should have been 2.
Because that's not how that works.
That's not how that works.
I guess.
It's
I
not
mean,
just how many people are in one space at a time.
But it just seems awfully convenient that all of them would be gone.
I'm actually surprised that more of the that so many of the superheroes lived
Right.
in the movies, because what is our population? Is it 350 million in the United States?
That's a good question.
Something along so I mean, when you're killing off 175 million people, there's a very good chance that everybody that was fighting Thanos would have died.
Here's the
off.
thing too. This is also not just isolated to our world. It is the universe.
Yeah.
He said half the population of the universe.
Oh, whoops. I didn't catch that.
So,
part.
you know, that's what
I guess I was an Earthist.
You were Earthist. Yeah, so you get that, and then it does have a cutscene at the end of it where you do have like a news, there's a news story happening where it's reaction to people turning to dust. Am I correct?
Yeah. It was
And
like
then
so pointless.
And then Ken Feige was like, "We need to go out on a high note. We need to have the ant play the drums so people can go hee 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 and refill their popcorn."
Yeah, that was so pointless. I mean, obviously the first cutscene, everyone was like, you know, pooping their butts, but
Yeah.
the second one was like, no.
Good movie. I really think it's a good movie. I think it stands on its own legs. It's very un-Marvel.
All of its legs.
All of its
all
legs.
eight
So
legs
many
are-
ant legs.
That's right.
Actually, there's probably gonna be somebody out there's like, actually, ants have 6. I don't know how many they have.
John, what's your take on it? Final thoughts.
It's disposable, but disposable fun. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, you know, you look at the DCU that try to take themselves so seriously and just have these epic movies that are going to be remembered forever, and they're garbage. I don't think the term disposable is necessarily bad in this sense. Like, not every one of these movies are going to be remembered through the annals of time. And I think that this was fun. I think it was good. I don't think it's great, but I think that's every Marvel movie for you. They're good, not great, and it's all about being a part of a bigger world. 7.5 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
I thought it was good. I did like the first one more, but I thought that it did a good job of not falling into a lot of the problems that Marvel movies do. I also really did enjoy like the organic humor, like you were saying, John. Like, it was humor that would be used in the moment. It didn't feel manufactured. You know, there were some points I thought were like a tiny bit weak, but I did enjoy seeing, you know, 2 female scientists and you know, a more strong like female part of the cast that's not common in Marvel. So, you know, there's usually like 1 woman, and to see like you know 3, even though they were secondary characters, to have 3 women characters, like, it's really sad to say, but like that was important. You know, I liked seeing that a lot. So I did like the first one more, but this one was good too.
Good stuff. Liked it too. So we'll close it out then. Lane, where can they find you on the Twitters?
On Twitter, you can find me at LA_Croft. And starting here, I'm going to be throwing things up on the Psychos Instagram. So if you guys want to check us out on Instagram, I'm going to try to post some more stuff for you guys to enjoy.
What's Instagram?
You say that, but you don't have an Instagram, so I kind of wonder if you know.
No, I'm seriously asking. You can find me at the Unreal J Wolf on Twitter.
And you've been really taking a lead on our Facebook group.
I've been digging your posts, bro.
Facebook page. Yeah, you've really been
Nailing it. it.
Doing great work there. And I operate the Twitter, so you can find me at Brian Content or the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or question you want to throw in and talk to us a little bit about Ant-Man and maybe your shrinking problems, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. And make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes and catch our new episode available every other Sunday.
If they made an Ant-Man Christmas special, would they have Anta Claus?
Epicast.